And we're going to continue the drumbeat toward humanness with our next speaker. He is Chris Malone, and he's a man of impactful wisdom and insight. And Chris is co-author of The Human Brand and will tell us what it means scientifically for a brand to be more human. He'll cover the warmth and competence message that's in his book. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Malone.
So welcome to the digital age of customer experience. It's pretty amazing, right? Thanks to e-commerce and mobile devices and cloud computing, customer experiences are being delivered today that were totally unimaginable just a few years ago. However, despite all of that amazing progress, there's a serious and growing problem. We've got more data than ever before, more access to customers than ever before, more ways to communicate with them than ever before. But loyalty in virtually every industry is actually lower than ever before, and the cost of attracting and keeping customers keeps going up. It's a burning platform issue because the experiences that are being delivered today are actually destroying loyalty rather than inspiring it. So what's the source of this problem and what can we do about it? Well, actually the answer to that question lies deep in our past, because primitive humans, tens of thousands of years ago, in the original game of Survivor, had to learn to make two kinds of decisions very quickly and very accurately with very little information, whenever they interacted with another person in order to survive. First, they had to determine what are the intentions of this person towards me. Are they a friend or a foe? Are they going to help me or hurt me, give me something or take something from me? Or said another way, what degree of warmth could they pick up about their intentions? Then, given what they thought their intentions might be, what was their ability to carry out those intentions? Were they strong or weak, fast or slow, foolish or intelligent? Or what degree of competence did they have? And it turns out that these two types of perceptions were one of the most important things that humans did every day that guided them through all their interactions with humans, because they allowed them to accomplish job number one, which was stay in the tribe. Because in the original game of Survivor, if you got kicked out of the tribe, you didn't get to go to Redemption Island like they do on TV. We're likely we would be dead within a few weeks because we're so dependent on one another for food, clothing, shelter, and protection. So humans, through evolution, became hardwired to make these instantaneous judgments of one another every day and guide us through our interactions to help us build relationships and stay in the tribe and survive. More recently, social psychologists have been able to show that these two types of perceptions actually guide over 80% of our behavior towards one another. Let me explain a little bit more about how it works. You can think of warmth as a whole category of perceptions related to intentions. Things like, is this person honest? Are they trustworthy? Are they acting in my best interest? Are they warm? Are they friendly? Are they approachable? And the list of things you might perceive about someone's intentions could go on and on. Competence is all the things you would expect, right? Is this person knowledgeable? They're resourceful? They're reliable? They're creative? And a list of all their competence could go on. And it turns out that these two types of perceptions actually trigger a predictable pattern of emotions, and it's the emotions that actually cause our behavior. So think for a moment about someone you know who's very warm, friendly, and trustworthy, who's also really competent, capable of what they do. Well, typically this causes us to feel admiration and pride. We are drawn to these people. We become loyal to them. People like Oprah Winfrey and Bill Gates are seen this way. But if we flip that around and think of someone who has all the same skill and ability, but is kind of cold and unapproachable, and we're not sure how trustworthy they are, that causes us to feel envy and distrust. And the behavior that comes from that is grudging cooperation. We kind of go along to get along, but we're not sure we can trust this person. People like Tiger Woods and Tom Brady are actually seen this way. The other side of things, if there's someone who's really warm and friendly and trustworthy, but they're really not very reliable or capable, we feel sympathy and pity. The behavior that comes from this is kind of indifference and neglect. Actually, Paula Abdul and Jessica Simpson are seen this way. But the worst combination of all, of course, is if you're cold and incompetent, that just makes us angry and we want nothing better to do with you. We avoid you at all costs. And it turns out people like Charlie Sheen and Bill Cosby are now seen this way. Shouldn't surprise us, right? So whether we realize it or not, every day we are all passing through these patterns of perception and emotion, and it's guiding through us all our interactions. And so when I first stumbled across this work a few years ago, two important questions came to mind for me. First, if there is this universal way that we are all perceiving and interacting with one another, how come I've never heard of it before? And it turns out that it's only been recognized in academia in the last 10 years, is not well known outside of that. But the second question that occurred to me is, if it's guiding our behavior so strongly, how could it not be influencing how we do business, what we choose to buy, where we choose to work, what we become loyal to? And so I reached out to the world's leading authority on warmth and competence, Dr. Susan Fisk at Princeton University. And I said, hey, I've become a fan of your work, and I have a theory. My theory is that your model may be predictive of what people buy and choose to become loyal to. She said, that's very interesting, let's check that out. And so we spent the next 3 years conducting research on over 50 companies and brands, asking customers about their experiences and how they perceive them on the basis of warmth and competence. And here's what we found. We're able to plot this in 2 different dimensions, as every good model has. Right on the vertical axis, we have warmth. On the horizontal axis, we have competence. And up in the upper right-hand quadrant, we found lots of well-known nonprofit organizations, household brands, companies like Amazon, Coca-Cola, Johnson & Johnson, Hershey, that have such a loyal following for such a long time. Down in the lower left-hand quadrant, though, we found lots of large banks, insurance companies, tobacco companies, and oil companies, the companies we hear so much frustration and distrust toward. On the lower right, we found lots of luxury brands like Rolex, Mercedes, and Rolls-Royce. And it's important to point out these are the perceptions of the total US adult population. Someone who is an owner of a Mercedes may not see it this way, but for most people that is financially beyond their reach. They're seen as less warm and less approachable, and they're seen this way. We weren't sure if we'd find anything in the upper left-hand quadrant, but it turns out that this is where the Postal Service and Amtrak, all these government entities that are kind of well-intended but not very competent, are seen. And so we saw this same pattern of perceptions, emotion, and behavior towards companies and brands. And so while that was all very interesting, perhaps what was more important and more useful is that when we rolled up all of that data and looked at how it impacted purchase intent and loyalty towards these companies, we found that fully 50% of purchase and loyalty behavior could be explained by 4 basic human perceptions: warm, friendly, competent, and capable. Things we would say about the people before we talked about price, quality, convenience, or any of the experience attributes we spend so much time thinking and focusing on. The basic human side of things was driving our behavior. Whether we have direct contact with the people at that company or not, our brains are wired in such a way that we still need to fill in those gaps. The psychology of how we form trust and loyalty hasn't changed in thousands of years and isn't going to change in our lifetime, and our brain still wants to fill those in. That's not a suggestion that technology is bad, but we need to use it in ways that align with the way we were wired by evolution. Perhaps that explains why, despite we've got more data than ever before, that we've got more loyalty, less loyalty than ever before, perhaps we've been missing half the picture, the half that relies on the human side of what drives our psychology, our trust, and our behavior. Now, we were fortunate to have our work published in the Journal of Consumer Psychology in 2012, and since then, over 280 other peer-reviewed academic papers have been published citing, building on, and validating our work. They found things like the way we perceive logos is the same way we perceive faces on the basis of warmth and competence. They found things like the information we have about the people at a company or brand physiologically alter the way we experience the taste of food and beverage products. Did a test on bottled water and chocolate, told 2 different stories, and asked people how identical products tasted, and they reported different taste experiences based on information about those people. So it's been really remarkable how this has been extended. In addition to that, over the last 8 years, we've conducted customer experience research on over 160 brands in 80 countries and found an overwhelming degree of confidence between warmth, perceptions, loyalty, and financial results. So it's been really remarkable. And while this data is certainly impressive, there is perhaps no better way to illustrate for you than to share a story about how it works in the real world. This is Teresa Cook. Back in August of 2012, Teresa Cook lay dying in a hospital bed in Nashua, New Hampshire. By her side was her 21-year-old grandson. Teresa was in the final stages of pancreatic cancer, and Brendan was trying to do whatever he could to make his grandmother a little more comfortable in her final days. One of the most devastating things about pancreatic cancer is it wreaks havoc on the digestive system. It takes away the appetite and causes rapid weight loss at exactly the time the body needs strength to fight the tumors. And so Brandon was trying to do whatever he could to get his grandmother to eat something to keep up her strength. But she was resisting. She said, "This hospital food is awful. I want no part of it." But he persisted and persisted. And eventually she said, "Okay, if you can get me my favorite food, I'll give that a try." He said, "No problem, grandmother. What is it? I'll take care of it for you right away." She said, "I could really go for a bowl of clam chowder in a bread bowl from the Panera Bread shop." Brandon said, "I got that, okay." Jumps on the phone, calls up the Panera Bread shop on Amherst Street in Nashua, New Hampshire, and says, "I'd like to place an order for clam chowder in a bread bowl to take out." There was a long pause on the line. And then he said, "I'm sorry, during the summer, we only make clam chowder on Friday. Can you give us a call on Friday?" Brandon said, "No, you don't understand. My grandmother's very sick. If we don't get some food in her, she may not last until Friday." So the manager got on the line, Susan Fortier, and she didn't miss a beat. She said, "No problem at all. You come right over. We'll have the clam chowder ready for you when you get here." And she did have it ready. In addition, she said, "Here's a box of cookies, and there's no charge for any of this. You just let us know how your grandmother's doing. And if you need more clam chowder, we'll be here for you." And he did let her know. Teresa Cook had more clam chowder on that Friday and the following Tuesday. It wasn't until Saturday, August 18th, that Teresa Cook quietly passed away with her family by her side. Clam chowder had sustained her for perhaps another week. It was just a bowl of clam chowder and just another week. But for Brandon and his grandmother, it was literally a matter of life and death, one that they would never forget. And it turns out there are a lot of other people that would never forget either. Because on that first Tuesday, Brandon sent a little thank you note over to the folks at the Panera Bread shop. And he sent that thank you note on his Facebook page. And so what do you imagine happened next? Within a few days, over 800,000 people around the world had liked that post. Nearly 35,000 had posted comments. People saying things like, "This is why our family is going to Panera for dinner tonight." Employees saying, "This is why I'm proud to come to work every day. We do things like this whenever we can." And so it begs the question, what accounts for this tremendous outpouring of emotion and behavior? 5 lines of text, not so much as a photograph. Was it the quality of the clam chowder? The speed of the service? The price? No, it wasn't any of those things. It was a genuine and compassionate act of warmth towards another person. And despite all we've been taught and trained in life, that all of our success comes from our competence, warmth is actually the dominant driver of our behavior. We can't get by without competence, but competence alone will only get us so far. Loyalty and trust and commitment come from warmth. And that's what moved those people and made a lasting difference in the lives of Brandon and his grandmother. So what we can take from stories like this, and frankly all of our research, is that in fact people were the first brands, faces were the first logos, and all the branded trade and commerce we engage in for the last several thousand years is just an adaptation of the way that we were wired by evolution to interact and form trust and relationships with one another. It only makes sense, if you think about it, for most of human history, commerce between people was conducted face to face. That's where we picked up all of that warmth and competence information. And so it has been in the past, so it will be in the future. Customer experiences that inspire and build lasting loyalty will be driven by warmth and competence, turbocharged by digital technology moving forward. And so I challenge you, don't allow your company or your brand or your experience to be just another cold, impersonal transaction. There's a remarkable human brand inside every organization if we will simply embrace it and deliver experiences that align with our warmth and competence expectations. And if we do, not only will we get all the loyalty and growth and financial impact that we're looking for, but even more importantly, you'll be able to make a lasting difference in the lives of your customers. And there's no greater accomplishment than that. Thank you for your attention. I hope this is helpful.
Thank you, Chris. Don't you just love it when people live up to the hype? Chris Malone just did that.